Oh, guess who's back? Friends, we've arrived at Midsummer. And here's the scoop. By the time we arrive at Midsummer, and we're talking July, the typical annuals start disappearing from our nurseries. And we are, if you haven't done your containers yet, this is where it becomes a little bit of a struggle. This is where we really have to use that imagination. And luckily for you, I have a client who just signed on. And so we are at that tipping point. A lot of the heavy hitters that I rely on in the early part of the summer, right when things are getting ramped up, those are gone. We said goodbye to them. And now the exciting thing begins. Now we get to rely on some unexpected treasures to make our container dreams come true. So I'm gonna pull out the trusty old table and we're gonna start creating because I have some very exciting things that I want to show you. Friends, I want to introduce you to some July centerpieces. And here's the deal. Moving into July, funny enough, the centerpiece options become very interesting. Whereas when I'm doing some of these containers earlier in the season, and we're talking May, a lot of things haven't leafed out yet, and that makes for a super boring centerpiece. So I want to go through some things that I've selected for my client tomorrow, and it's going to be a pretty darn good time. So I've got here some very special pieces that I am going to be using potentially at my house, potentially at my client's house. I like to bring a lot of options with me when I'm designing. This first one, this is a pennisetum. Now, a pennisetum is a group of grasses, and what's so cool about July is that you can start designing with these sensational grasses. Pennisetums are amazing. They come in really teeny tiny to the super jumbo. This one happens to be a super jumbo, and they get that really cool tuft on them in the fall, which just is like sensational. Now, a pennisetum, you are really only going to want to leave in a container for a year because their root system will get massive. This one is pennisetum black stockings. And if you can believe it or not, this little boy will get to be 6, potentially even 10 feet tall. He's going to be in a container in my backyard, so probably only about 6 feet, but it's a monster and it is sensational if you have a container that can hold this type of volume. This next little guy is an interesting selection as well. This is a hibiscus. And what's really cool about this hibiscus is if you have ever grown your own cut flowers or you know who Florette is, this is one of her favorite textures to use in the garden. And this is hibiscus, let me think of it, mahogany splendor. And this one, the more you cut on it, the more it bushes out and grows. And so this is a really sensational centerpiece and is a really good option if you need something for more sun, but you might like that look of the Japanese maple. So really a cool one. And this one doesn't even show up until about this time of the year. All right, next up is this gorgeous salvia. This is Salvia Amistad, and she is super tight and narrow because she's in this 1-gallon container. But the cool thing about salvias is not only are they sensational at this time of year, like this is going to burst into bloom in about a half a second, but you can also take a upright narrow plant like this, start cutting it, clipping it back at a leaf pairing, and all of a sudden, this thing will explode. In fact, if you're at the nursery and you notice them cut back, it's because they've gotten too leggy. And what they're doing is they're cutting it back, giving it like a little crew cut to form an even more sensational plant. So again, salvias are just incredible at this time of year. All right, next up is another sensational centerpiece. This is obviously a hydrangea. This is actually one of my favorites. This is a quickfire hydrangea. And what's funny is I was actually introduced to this variety from a friend of mine, Eleanor, who's a florist. This is one of her favorites to use because not only does it come out with this great kind of creamy white, but you can see right here, it's starting to blush up. And by the time this gets to fall, you not only have like a sensational flower because it'll kind of come out in more of a cone, but it starts getting into these like really awesome rosy antique tones that are super sensational. And so when you have a small space, what's really fun about a centerpiece like this is it almost feels like you have multiple centerpieces in one because you get such a great variety of color change. Last but not least, you guys, I might be declaring this the year of the banana. Is this even in the screen? Friends, are you ready for this? Look at this insane, just stunner. She is a stunner. Okay, let's put her down on the ground. For reference, I like to call it 5'3", 5'4" on a good day. And the can is probably about just over a foot tall, maybe 14 inches. So if this banana on July 2nd is already this tall, can you imagine how sensational she is going to be in September? Now, I have heard of some people overwintering bananas in my climate. And by the way, I garden like I'm in a zone 7. Some crazy people have us designated as higher. However, I only garden like I'm in a zone 7 because every couple of years we have a deep freeze and all of my zone 8 plants die. So this banana is not meant to be hardy in our climate, but I have heard that people will wrap it and overwinter it with great success. This is another wonderful, wonderful plant that you can't get at this size earlier in the season. So if you have waited or been unable to do your containers until now, holy cow, look at this treasure that you get to have that all of us who did our containers in May simply could not ever dream of doing. So we've already gone through the fact that you can find really sensational centerpieces that are not available when we first start doing our containers around May. The second thing I want to touch on is when you go to do your containers, your mid-story elements are shifting. So where maybe once they were kind of more like taller coleus, taller geraniums, maybe some plecanthus, all those things. You're not really getting those anymore. Instead, we are going to shift our focus and attention to grasses and perennials. So first and foremost, we have grasses. Now, this is a Carex everrio. There are about 1 million different grasses that you can use right now. This Carex is actually one that I use year round, but this time of year, start looking at your miscanthus, your pennisetums, all of those grasses that are typically dormant that are now emerging. This is their most brilliant time, and look for ones that have an especially interesting seed head, because come the fall, that is really when these grasses shine, and you can get some absolutely incredible kind of bottle brushy textures that will give you interest all the way until frost. So grasses, do not sleep on them. All right, the next thing, this again is one of those really fun things where because we are a little bit later doing our containers, check this thing out. This one has yet to put on its little fluffy tip, but this is a celosia. And a lot of times earlier in the year, it's not warm enough for celosias. And so we are just seeing them now. And there's some incredible textures. There's the ones that look kind of like a little tuft. There are ones that are more like a coxcomb where they have that little kind of almost coralish wiggle to them. So celosia, this is really fun to play with if you are doing your containers now. Now, another item that has been really dormant until we get these hotter temperatures are caladiums. This is lovely for the shade container. So caladiums, alocasias, those are both things that I really can't get my hands on earlier in the season, but right now, this is just coming into its prime. And I mean, this is still a baby. We are gonna get easily 2 feet tall. And this is actually a caladium called Allure. Now, if you've watched my last video and you saw me put this in a container, that was in my small space renovation series. I'll link that below. This is a sedum, and right now sedums are incredible for the container. And what's so great about all of these perennials, well, except for the celosia and the caladium, the perennials that you start to use in your containers, at the end of the season, pull those out and put them in your landscape. That is not a throwaway plant. That is actually an investment plant. So what do they say? It's like garden math, where it's like, if you buy a perennial for your container, but then you put it in the garden, that plant is free. So yeah, it's garden math. All right, this next one is just about to come into bloom. I'm going to take you in close on her. Look at this. This is a Gara, and you've seen the white one in my front dining room garden. However, this one is, I think it's Belleza dark pink. Belleza. We don't know. But this is the dark pink, and actually, I will tell you, I bought this because sometimes, you guys know how I like to match the center of a flower. I'll pop that out and put it in a different flower. So like if it has a dark center, I might bring in some dark foliage. Well, another trick that I really love to do is I will take, if it has an interesting stem color, which this does, I will match it to another element in my container. So when we come back here, and we look at this banana and this beautiful red that's underneath, it absolutely echoes the stem of this Gara, and this is just, it's gonna be fantastic. Okay, the next thing that you guys get to use in your containers is Echinacea. This one is called apricot, Fresno apricot. And just, I'm gonna take you in close on this. Now, Echinaceas come in a wide variety of colors. This one is very multi-petaled, has that cute little serrated tip, and they come in this variety and so much more. You can get some that are like the classic open disc, where it's just a center and a single layer of petals all the way around. You can get some that have more of those like reflexed petals where they come down. And then you even have some that have like a little tufty frilly bit in the middle, which looks kind of like a pincushion. Echinaceas are so lovely. And like I said, at the end of the season, pull them out, put them in your landscape, just perfect, perfect. Okay, the next one is hummingbird mint. This is Agastache, and this one's called Boquito Orange. And this one's actually been on my radar for a little while. And this one would be really fun on a patio because it does have a little bit of that like herby, minty situation going on. Hummingbirds go completely bananas over this selection. It comes in orange. It comes in a lot of actually dusty tones, which I feel like are the name of the game. Dusty tones are so beautiful, so flexible, and again, just an incredible perennial, lightly scented, really wonderful addition. This next perennial is probably a different structure than you might see, but this is a Rudbeckia. This Rudbeckia is in the Triloba family. The Trilobas are very multi-branching and really like bushy and a little bit more airy, but I mean, you could do Rudbeckia Goldsturm, you could do Little Henry. There's about 8,000 Rudbeckias that are beautiful for a container, and they add that hit of like very saturated gold that are super, super fun. This is the last one for this little perennial series, and then I'll get on to it. But this is a fuchsia. This is DeBronze Black Cherry, and this is a beautiful shade lover. It comes in this like deep magenta, but then the throat of the fuchsia is a very rich purple. And just early on in the season, you can totally find these, but you're gonna find them in 4 inches, maybe quartz. But later in the season, you can invest in one of these bad boys. And a gallon container is just, that is impact. It is just absolutely beautiful. And I mean, look at this. A fuchsia, a chartreuse grass. Done. Done. We're done here. Beautiful. So since I'm going to a private client's house tomorrow that I don't have permission to film at, I thought it would be fun to create some of these arrangements in advance so you can see the direction of where my mind is heading and how I'm playing with color. And I do have to say, when you get to the nursery, it's gonna feel like a challenge because you're gonna have to find some new selections and not those like tried and trues. But what you end up coming out with, I feel like are these just awesome texture stories and really, really interesting color combinations. So I want to pull a few things together for you. So on their dining room, they have two gargantuan, and I do mean gargantuan pots. I mean, they're easily 30 inches across. And so what I've decided to do is bring in, now they're flanking the corners, so each one is going to receive a banana. And then to bring in color, because this client loves color, which is so fun for me, I am bringing in a trio of these really, really lovely garas. The next thing I'm going to do is, because this is starting to get real dark, I'm going to bring in some grasses, okay? And these grasses are really going to spill over the edge of this container and just make it so very special. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring in a trio of sweet potato vines. And you kind of see what I'm doing here? I am pairing, for a little extra drama, I am pairing my dark foliage with my chartreuse, my dark foliage up here with my chartreuse below, right? So I'm kind of inverting it. So really, we're keeping the eye moving all the way around. This one is a sweet potato vine called Sidekick Blackheart. All right, now this didn't feel like it was floral enough for me, so I'm gonna show you something else that I'm pulling into the arrangement. Okay, so keeping with our theme of heat lovers, two other annuals that you're gonna see very commonly this time of year, because they just perform and they are sturdy as heck. That's gonna be the petunias and the verbenas. Okay, so here's what I did. I grabbed this petunia. This is called French Vanilla. It's one of my favorites. The reason that I chose this is because as I was looking at the containers that my client really loved, she was drawn to little tiny tidbits of yellow. So it wasn't like in your face yellow, but everywhere there was just like a little hint of yellow. And she even did a little shopping and she purchased some yellow calibrachoa. And I was like, okay, the girl likes a little bit of sunshine. So I'm gonna put it kind of here on one side, and then check this out. This is the verbena I selected. This one is called Black Velvet, and it is a heat lover as well. So you can kind of see here, when we go around, we have a lot of really, really good options to play with. And these are gonna fill in so beautifully. So I'm just gonna give you a little tasting of what our arrangement is gonna look like when it is all said and done. And actually, let me tighten this in a little bit so you can really see. But here's what I want to point out to you. We started off with this red of the banana really setting the tone. We pulled it into the Gara. We dropped it down into not only the black heart, but we dropped it into the center of our petunia. The other thing we did is we dropped it. It kind of echoes that in this, oh my gosh, what is this called? In this black velvet. It echoes it a little bit as well, because this is not a cool toned purple. This is a warmer toned purple. So the undertones of it are red, which is something really interesting for you to start paying attention to with your eye. And then of course we popped the whole thing, kept it really happy with these little chartreuse moments. So welcome to dining room arrangement number 1. And I'm very tickled, very tickled. Okay, friends, I'm a little obsessed with this banana, and I want to do one more arrangement that will be a sneak peek for an upcoming video. But I have been particularly jazzed about like apricot and like mango tones. Okay, so here's what I did. As you saw before, this crazy beautiful echinacea, and it gets a little bit of that deep red right in the middle. And then pairing it with this agastacha, which I just love. Then, look at this. Bringing in a little bit of grassy texture, or, this is where I start to get really excited. Look at that situation. This little celosia right in the middle. Let me see if I can pinch it in here. Okay, how adorable is that? Then, I feel like a game show host. I feel like, but wait, there's more. And look at this. Finishing it off with a little bit of this beautiful, beautiful French vanilla. This is feeling so lovely. Let me see what else I have. Okay, the other thing I've been playing with is actually bringing in some cool tones. So let's try that for a second. Okay, well, isn't that interesting? I feel like you take away that chartreuse, you add in some blue. Isn't that an interesting move? I still feel like we need something strappy and grassy in here. Let me try one other thing. Okay, let's try that. And let's try going like super moody. Oh gosh, I don't think I like that. Dang, I thought that was going to be the ticket. Never mind. I retract this statement. This, let's take that out. That's it, man. That is so chipper. And actually, I'm gonna put this back. I might put that there, might bring that here. But this little sweetie right in the middle, just a little extra pop of red. All these florals. Bring in one more. Ooh, okay, 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 okay. There we go. Loving this. The red, dark, dark, dark. This, I feel like, is the perfect balance of just like bright and cheerful, yet still like sumptuous and lovely. Okay, banana arrangement number 2. Okay, so let's do another quick little hit here. This is my Pennisetum black stockings. Huge, strappy, this really great kind of like rock and roll stripe down the underside. This paired with this orange, and then bringing in some of this dusty blue sedum, because look at this, the tension that's created between a cool blue and more of a warm orange. This is what makes a really interesting arrangement. And then over here, check this out. Bringing in a yellow, this is another warm color. So even though these are different sizes, it's a little bit asymmetrical. We have warm, cool, warm. And then we can pop it again under here with not only Marguerite, but this beautiful sidekick black heart over here. This would be a stunning arrangement. All right, friends, I want to use this salvia for just a second. This is Salvia Amistad, which has like a deep, beautiful purple. And what I am noticing, or what I want to draw your attention to, is at this time of year, we are experiencing a shift in color. We go from more of like cool, soft tones of late spring, early summer to more intensity, more heat. So with that in mind, I was actually able to find these beautiful, they're like a double ruffled geranium. This is Fantasia Cranberry Sizzle. This one is different because it has a much more red tone to the leaf. So we're gonna start, because this is so tall, I'm gonna bring in a nice mid-height layer, okay? That will kind of help support this salvia that eventually will be growing outward. The next thing I wanna do is bring in a little bit more warmth. Again, we have a yellow here, which is a beautiful undertone for this later summer date. Next, we have this Calibrachoa. This one is the Hula Hot Pink, and this is a combining element. So not only do we have the pinky red here, but at the very center, we have the yellow that's gonna pop it over here. Okay, and then last but not least, this is fine for most people, but for all of my arrangements, I really love texture. And so I am always, always, always gonna bring in something to break up this texture. And for this arrangement, I think it's actually more interesting to do 2 of the black heart and 2 of the Marguerite. And there we have it. Really warm undertones, super rich, super layered, Lots of great green textures. All right, friends, I just threw down one more really simple one. When you're doing a hydrangea container, this is where you're only gonna do what I refer to as a collar planting. So think of it as like a beautiful pearl necklace, a beautiful, just any sort of beautiful beaded necklace. It's simple. It's understated. We're not trying to break any sort of like new fashion statement. It's just a simple necklace to adorn something that is already more beautiful. So we have this gorgeous quickfire hydrangea, and what we're gonna surround it with is these deeper, warmer tones that are gonna echo the stem of our quickfire hydrangea, along with accompanying it as it transitions from white into more of this beautiful raspberry tone. So friends, it is definitely not too late. You still have so much more to go to enjoy your containers. So get out there, get inspired, look at the perennials. Don't just stop at the annuals. We've got lots of options available. I'm gonna see you in the next one. And in the meantime, please say hello to your garden for me.